It's a pleasure to be here today as the discussant for this session. In my role, I would like to direct our attention to one overarching question. I'll start with the question and then I'll end with the question. In light of what Jason and John have told us, what are the public policy questions and outcomes that we should be focusing on, especially in a tough fiscal situation going forward? From my perspective, I would like to offer 4 additional observations to inform our discussions. First, New York's economy, and I think many of our guests have spoken about this today. New York's economy has been permanently altered over the past year, and the landscape once again will be rearranged as New York grapples with a 4-year budget deficit close to $38 billion. Second, as John has said, colleges and universities are intricately linked to their communities, especially as employers, making the health of each imperative. Third, at the same time, individual families have seen a decline in household net worth and in personal savings as a percent of disposable income. This makes decision about affording college difficult, particularly for increasing numbers of first-generation students. And finally, one thing where we did talk about the enrollment trends going back in history through recessions and in time, we actually do face twin challenges going forward, which when we look at the pipeline, which our colleges one day will welcome students. For example, even though the overall state population grew by 5.2% since 1995, kindergarten enrollment for the same time period is down 37,000 students, or 13.5%. Data from the New York State Department of Education shows that 2009 is the high watermark for the number of high school graduates, at least for the next 10 years. Meanwhile, fewer than half of New York students of color graduate from high school within 4 years. The graduation rate for our Hispanic and Black students has improved over the last few years, something that we've been working very hard on, and the state has been working very hard on, but it still falls short of the national average. However, the completion rates for our white students exceed the national figures. So challenging times present us with opportunities. I'll put on my old budget director hat. Then we have an abundance of opportunities before us. So fortunately, higher education is one of New York's greatest strengths, and now more than ever, it should play a significant and central role in shaping our future. Our colleges and universities are the home to the thinkers, researchers, educators, and innovators who will play a vital role in defining new technologies, in finding solutions to energy dependency, and training the new workforce so that New York can continue to be competitive going forward into the future. Our universities are the source of ideas and creativity that we need to foster the new economy, or the bold steps that the governor keeps talking about. Once more, and I'll just have to say this, I speak up for those economic majors who are in the room, and others who are studying liberal arts disciplines, we are also broadly preparing an enlightened citizenry that will help to reinforce the very foundation of a democratic society. So this afternoon we are focused on human capital, which Nobel laureate Gary Becker tells us includes all forms of schooling. It includes computer training courses of medical care, lectures on the virtues of punctuality and honesty. These, he says, raise earnings, improve health, and add to a person's good habits over much of his lifetime. And he goes further to say these are called human capital because people cannot be separated from their knowledge, their skills, their health, or values in a way that can be separated from their financial and physical assets. We know that a multitude of benefits flow from New York's institutions of higher education into nearly every aspect of life in our state, from improved health care and national security to technology innovations and greater civic engagement. College graduates volunteer more, they vote more often, and they participate more in their communities. A college education is also the most effective way of transcending distinctions of race, ancestry, or wealth, which many of these can fragment our society. A recent report I want to talk about just for a few minutes by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, most of you are probably very familiar with the group, provides evidence that governments yield significant financial returns on the funds allocated for higher education. And I think, by the way, John's analysis echoes prediction in that report, namely that the recession will lead students to stay in school. In a recent interview with the Council of Higher Education, the head of the OECD unit that prepared the report said, and I quote, in virtually every country, the public benefits of higher education outweigh the cost. So when factoring in the social benefits of a college education, coupled with the link between specific knowledge stocks and GDP, as Jason has shown us, I would argue that investments in higher education that we as a state and nation make yield a talent dividend that benefits us all. Strictly from an economic point of view, a person earns more with a college degree and is on track to earn more with the increasing education, which in turn yields to greater resources for government, both at the state and national levels, to provide benefits to its residents. Touching a little bit on the near future, because we are in a very challenging time, but also a very exciting time for higher education. Next week or later this week, we believe the House is slated to take up President Obama's plan for federal student aid. And soon thereafter, the Senate will add its perspective. As we know, the plan is, and many of our local congressmen have worked very hard on trying to get additional benefits for our colleges and universities and our students. On the state level, and I think the last panel talked about this, the division of the budget is already working to craft next year's budget, while it already basically addresses gaps in the current year. So as we go through these paths, what are some of the policy questions and outcomes that we should be focusing on? And just to wrap it up, I want to open our discussion or give a couple points of consideration for public policymakers. First, the federal government has recognized the stimulus power of higher education. They've done this through increased funding in critical areas such as Pell Grants, university-based research grants, college opportunity tax credits, veterans benefits, a wide array of programs. The state, too, also must fund critical areas and critical need areas to help develop the recovery and promote growth. The OECD report points out that investing in student aid and access to education yields a significant public rate of return. For us, we must ensure that all students who want to go to college have the means to do that. We must also continue to support outreach so that students complete high school college ready. Many federal programs that we work with, the GEAR program and the College Access Challenge Grant program, are two avenues that we use to do this, but these are important things that we must continue our good work. And finally, part of our attention must be directed to programs that increase synergies between campuses and communities through job creation and development. By funding college and university research, we can help spur economic development. So to conclude, at a time when we need creative thought and action, we do believe that higher education is a key and can play a key role in the future of shaping New York. I want to thank Jason and John for sharing their research, and we welcome your comments. Thank you.